In this episode, I'd like to talk a little bit about the dark side of positive psychology. We don't know very much about the dark side. We don't really see there as being a dark side to positive psychology, or a sinister side, but that doesn't mean that it doesn't impact on us. It just means that it impacts on us without us having any clear awareness of what's actually happening. So it has a detrimental effect, but that detrimental effect, we remain oblivious to it because we're so convinced that positive psychology is helpful and good and all those kind of things. One good way to talk about it is to approach it from the point of view of responsibility. Responsibility is, of course, a much abused word, highly abused, always has been, abused to the hilt. This doesn't mean that there isn't a proper way of using the word responsible and responsibility. It just means that we're very quick to abuse the word. Now, a good place to start might be to think about physical health. And we do have responsibilities about our physical health, because if we don't look after our bodies, no one else is going to come along and do it. Usually we've got a body, and in a very practical sense it is our responsibility to take reasonable care of it and wash and eat well, do things that are good for the body and not do things that are bad for the body. Just like if you've got a car, you change the oil, etc., etc. Not wishing to draw too direct a parallel, but it's the same kind of thing in some ways. What we do is we conflate physical health and mental health. We assume that what's good in one case is good in another, or what's true in one case is true in another. Therefore, quite understandably, we see ourselves as having a responsibility for our mental health, which sounds fine to most of us, or mostly sounds fine. The only problem with it is that although it sounds fine, it's actually a jinx, it's a double bind. When we take it seriously, it becomes a threat to our mental health. To believe that we have to have responsibility for our mental health is itself injurious to our mental well-being, because it gives us this completely false idea that we are responsible for whether we have good mental health or bad mental health, or whether we're happy or not happy, or peaceful or not peaceful, that we are in charge of the boat and we're the captain of the boat, and we should be ordering things better so that we don't have bad mental health by doing all the right things, whatever they are. And then there's various lists of what the right things might be. Now, when we are the recipient of positive therapy or positive psychology, implicit in this, well, explicit, is the fact here is methodology X, Y, and Z, and we do it, and then that will be beneficial, that will help. That's the explicit message. The implicit message is, if you continue to be suffering in whatever way you're suffering, that's your fault, because you didn't do the thing that if you did do it, you wouldn't be suffering in that way. So straight away there's a nasty little glitch there. Now, assuming that positive therapy worked, this would be true. If it worked every time and we still didn't do it, then we could say, it's your fault, you didn't do it. What do you expect? Etc., etc. Blaming type messages of that nature. But if it doesn't work, then the whole thing's banjaxed, because if we carry on feeling If we carry on suffering in the way that we were, and we've done all the positive psychology bit, then clearly something wrong with us. Either we're not doing it right, or we're not putting enough effort into it, or we're not diligent enough, or we're not clever enough to understand what it is we're supposed to be doing, or maybe there's just something especially wrong with us that one way or another doesn't leave us feeling particularly good. So the crux of this argument is really to say that if I place responsibility on your shoulders for not being anxious, for not being depressed, or whatever state of distress you might be in, then I'm adding to your distress, because I'm making it your responsibility that you're like that. People even say that sometimes, as bluntly as that. The truth of the matter is, if we looked into it, if we cared enough to look into it, we'd see that whatever state of mind, whatever state of consciousness I'm in, it's not given to me to be able to change that. No matter what the hell I do, I can't change that. If I'm angry, I can't deliberately not be angry. If I'm anxious, I can't wangle my way not to be anxious. If I'm sad, I can't perform some kind of set of mental acrobatics so that I'm not sad, that I'm feeling a lot better. That's an impossibility. One's mental state cannot be changed by oneself by deliberate action. It can change, and it will change. Mental states change all the time, but not because we demand of them that they change, or try and lean on them to make them change, or leverage them, or whatever the hell. And if I'm angry and I try and change, then I'm using that state of mind to change itself, so I'm getting angry with my anger, as if doubling the anger will somehow alleviate the anger. And the same is true with anxiety. I can very easily get anxious about being anxious, and then anxiously try not to be anxious, so I'm doubling my anxiety. But this is not going to free me from that anxiety, clearly. So whatever inner state I'm in, I can't use that inner state to make the inner state be other than it is. And if I have a very clear understanding of that, there is this thing, whatever you might want to call it, acceptance isn't really a very good word. It implies that you have to do something that I must accept, but maybe surrender is a better word. You let go. Letting go is a better word. I can't change it, so I let go all my ideas of changing it, my hopes of changing it, and then whatever mind state I'm in gets to be experienced fully, and then it liberates itself, as they say in Buddhism. The state self-liberates. It gets to be felt, and then it goes. A feeling comes, we feel the feeling, and then we don't have to feel it again. When felt fully, a feeling doesn't hang around forever. So when I realise that I have no responsibility for shifting this, whatever my psychological state is, then I'm in a good situation, because I'm able to fully experience it without some kind of hope or anticipation or expectation or whatever it is that I should change it, and that the place I'm in is a wrong place and I really shouldn't be there, and there's something wrong with me if I am. So then, if all that false responsibility, because that's what it is removed from my shoulders, that feels so much better from the start. I don't feel guilty or bad or anything like that for feeling bad. I don't feel bad about feeling bad, I just feel bad, and that's a freed up state of mind. Now if I were to come along to you and give you to understand, and it won't be very hard for me to make you understand because you kind of believe it anyway, that it's your responsibility and you have to do something about it, and I'm telling you the thing and you have to do it, then I'm putting that responsibility on you when I should be taking it off. I should be giving you the freedom. Well, I can't really give you the freedom, but we can talk about the idea that you do have the freedom to be the way that you are. Instead, I'm trying to take away your freedom to be the way that you are, and that's going to make you feel worse. Were it possible, for you to have the insight or understanding that it's actually okay to be the way that you are, that you're free to be the way that you are. That's the same as taking away the false responsibility that you have to change yourself, which you couldn't do anyway, which is nonsense really. Then you'll feel so much better. It's such a relief to realise that it's not up to you to change yourself, and it's not your own fault that you feel the way that you feel. So positive therapy or positive psychology puts the false responsibility on you, thereby doubling your suffering, or increasing it anyway, maybe tripling it. Whereas the negative approach is one whereby the understanding can come that it's not your responsibility at all. Now the thing about this is that wherever you go, you'll be meeting therapists and counsellors and psychologists busy putting responsibility on you under the guise of helping you. And absolutely, this is really inarguable. This is happening all over the planet in all sorts of mental health settings. So you as a patient or a client are walking in and you've got a lot of suffering on your plate, and then you're coming out with even more suffering, which doesn't really, I mean, there's got to be something sinister about that really. I mean, that's not right, is it? That just can't be right. And yet that is what positive psychology does, and that's what positive psychology will always do. It can't not do it. It's a jinx, it's a double bind. We are double binding our clients if we do that. So that's the dark side of positive psychology, which is worth airing. It's worth them putting it out there because it doesn't get aired very much, and it should do. Okay, thank you. That's it for this third instalment. Thank you.